Some stories don't fade with time. They linger, hidden in whispers, waiting for the brave, or the foolish, to remember them. Tonight we journey to 1977, to the quiet suburb of Enfield, England. There, in a modest council house, an ordinary family's life unraveled under the grip of forces beyond understanding. This is the story of the Enfield Poltergeist. Some places hide their secrets well, cloaking unspeakable horrors behind mundane walls. The story of Enfield is one of these places, a small council house in North London that became the epicenter of one of the most terrifying hauntings ever documented. Tonight we peer into the shadows of Green Street, where reality twisted into a waking nightmare. In 1977, Peggy Hodgson was a single mother, doing her best to raise 4 children in a small council house. Life wasn't easy, but it was familiar, predictable, until it wasn't. It began innocently enough. Peggy Hodgson, a single mother, lived with her 4 children in a modest home on Green Street. It was September 1977, and life was simple, until strange sounds started to disturb their nights. At first they dismissed it. Just the creaks and groans of an old house, they thought. But the house had other plans. The first signs came one evening in September, when Peggy heard an unfamiliar noise from the girl's bedroom. At first she thought it was the children playing, but what she found when she opened the door was far from playful. That night, Peggy rushed into the room to find her daughters screaming. The heavy chest of drawers near the wall had moved on its own. Peggy pushed it back, only to watch in horror as it slid forward again, as though unseen hands were pulling it. She grabbed her children and fled into the street, seeking help from her neighbors. The neighbors, Vic and Peggy Nottingham, were skeptical at first. But upon entering the house, they too heard the unexplainable knocks and thuds. It wasn't long before small objects began to move, cups sliding across tables, doors slamming shut without warning. Fear spread like wildfire. Something unnatural was happening in the Hodgson home. Within weeks, the activity had escalated beyond comprehension. Word of the haunting reached the media and paranormal investigators. Among them were Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair, members of the Society for Psychical Research. They documented the phenomena: levitating objects, sudden temperature drops, and eerie voices coming from Janet, voices too deep and guttural to belong to an 11-year-old child. The media took notice, and investigators Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair were brought in to uncover the truth. Armed with recording devices, cameras, and notebooks, they began their work. But nothing could prepare them for what they were about to encounter. 11-year-old Janet quickly became the focus of the haunting. It wasn't just the strange events surrounding her. It was the voice. Without warning, Janet began speaking in a low, rasping tone, claiming to be Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in the house years earlier. The investigators recorded hours of these disturbing interactions. But how could a young girl produce such a voice for hours without damage to her vocal cords? Over the following months, the activity reached a fever pitch. Furniture would levitate and slam against walls. Objects hurled themselves across the room as if thrown by unseen hands. The house was no longer a home. It was a battleground. After nearly 2 years, the haunting suddenly stopped. The Hodgson family moved on, but the scars of their ordeal remained. To this day, skeptics and believers debate the truth of the Enfield Poltergeist. But those who stepped inside that house, those who heard the voices and saw the chaos, know one thing for certain: something evil was there. What happened in Enfield defies explanation, but perhaps some questions are better left unanswered. Sometimes, the scariest stories are the ones we can't explain. Tonight, you've glimpsed the horrors of Enfield. But the question remains: do you believe? The story of the Enfield Poltergeist remains one of the most chilling accounts of a haunting ever documented. Was it a hoax, as skeptics claim? Or was it something far darker, an unseen force feeding on fear and chaos? The truth lies somewhere between belief and doubt, but one fact is certain: the Hodgson family's life was forever changed. Perhaps some places are cursed to remember, or perhaps they never forget. The Enfield house may seem quiet now, but as history has shown us, silence is not always the end. Even after the activity ceased, the story of the Enfield Poltergeist haunted the public imagination. Skeptics pointed to the lack of definitive evidence, calling it a fabrication by a desperate family seeking attention. But the investigators, reporters, and neighbors who witnessed the events told a different story. They spoke of an energy, dark, malevolent, and beyond comprehension. Decades later, Janet Hodgson herself admitted that some events may have been exaggerated or fabricated, but she insisted that much of what occurred was real. "You can't make up that kind of fear," she once said in an interview. The voices, the levitations, the chaos, it was as real to her as the air she breathed. The Enfield case is not unique. Across the world, there are countless reports of similar phenomena, unseen forces wreaking havoc in homes, leaving families to grapple with terror they cannot escape. Are these poltergeists mere figments of imagination? Or are they something more? A glimpse into a darker reality that lurks just beyond the veil of our understanding. Some researchers believe poltergeists are manifestations of human energy, unleashed during times of stress or trauma. Others claim they are entities, spirits trapped between worlds, seeking release. Whatever the explanation, one fact remains: those who experience it are never the same. The house on Green Street stands quiet now, its walls holding secrets that may never be revealed. To the outside world, it's just another home. But to those who know the story, it's a reminder that some doors should never be opened. Sometimes the scariest part of a haunting is knowing it can happen to anyone. As years passed, the house on Green Street faded from the headlines and life moved on. New families occupied the home, each claiming nothing out of the ordinary occurred. But what if the entity wasn't gone? What if it simply waited? What truly happened within these walls may never be fully understood. Skeptics dismiss it as trickery. Believers call it proof of the supernatural. But the unanswered questions remain. Why the Hodgsons? Why that house? And where did the energy go when the activity stopped? Janet Hodgson grew up under the weight of the haunting, her name forever tied to the Enfield Poltergeist. She described her experiences as a burden, an ordeal no child should endure. Yet even now, she struggles to explain it all. The haunting did not just affect the family, but everyone who set foot in that house. Investigators, journalists, even skeptics, all left with more questions than answers. Was the poltergeist truly an entity, or something deeper, more psychological? Perhaps in confronting the unknown, we were only looking into a mirror, facing the shadows within ourselves. The Enfield Poltergeist is one of many stories that challenge our understanding of reality. From Amityville to Borley Rectory, humanity has long wrestled with tales of the unexplained. Are these stories evidence of a greater, unseen force? Or are they warnings, cautionary tales about what happens when fear takes root in the mind? Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, one thing is certain. Places like Enfield leave a mark, not just on those who live there, but on all of us who hear their stories. They remind us of the fragility of our understanding and the terrifying possibility that we are not alone. Perhaps the house is silent now, but silence doesn't mean it's empty. Some stories don't end, they wait, and sometimes they wait for you. They say some objects carry memories of the past. But what if those memories refuse to stay quiet? What if they claw their way into the present, taking on a life of their own? Tonight I'll tell you a story about a doll named Anna. A doll so innocent in appearance, yet so twisted in essence, it leaves fear in the hearts of all who meet her. But this isn't just a story, it's a warning. Because once you hear her name, Anna might just find you. There's a peculiar chill that creeps down your spine when you step into a room filled with relics of the past. Today we venture into a tale as eerie as it is real, a story of a doll named Anna, whose presence defies the logic of the living. Sit tight, for what you're about to hear isn't just a tale of horror. It's the stuff of nightmares. Anna was an innocent-looking doll, dressed in a vintage blue gown with lace trim, her porcelain face painted with the care of a bygone era. She had bright blue glass eyes that seemed to watch and follow and even judge. Anna belonged to a young girl in the late 1800s, but her history wasn't as sweet as her appearance suggested. The doll was said to have been gifted to a girl named Margaret by her mother, just before tragedy struck their family. Margaret's untimely death, shrouded in mystery, left Anna in the hands of her grieving mother. Shortly after, whispers of strange happenings began to circulate in their small village. It started with whispers, soft voices echoing in the night, though no one else was in the house. Then came the shadows, faint figures dancing in the corner of one's vision, always vanishing when you turned to look. But the most chilling events involved Anna herself. The doll was said to move, not dramatically, not suddenly, but just enough to make its presence known. A tilt of the head, a shift in position, as though it was alive. Years passed, and Anna changed hands, often leaving a trail of unease wherever she went. Families that owned her reported sleepless nights, bouts of inexplicable fear, and even accidents that seemed to defy coincidence. Yet Anna was always pristine, untouched by time, as though she was preserved by something unnatural. In the 1990s, Anna came into the possession of a collector of haunted artifacts, who decided to investigate her origins. They brought in psychics, historians, and even skeptics to analyze the doll. The results were chilling. Every psychic reported the same sensation. Anna wasn't just haunted. She was a vessel, a container for something far older and more malevolent than anyone imagined. One investigator dared to touch Anna without permission. That very night, he awoke to the sensation of hands choking him. He survived but left the project immediately, claiming the doll's gaze haunted him in his dreams. The others tried to cleanse Anna, but their efforts only seemed to anger whatever resided within her. Today, Anna resides in a locked glass case, sealed with protective symbols. Visitors report feeling cold as they approach her, and many swear they see her eyes blink or her lips twitch into a sinister smile. The collector keeps her hidden from view most of the time, but one thing is clear: Anna's story isn't over, and perhaps it never will be. And so, Anna remains, a silent witness to generations of fear and tragedy. Perhaps she is merely a doll, a victim of our imagination. Or perhaps she is waiting for her next owner. What do you think? Would you dare to keep Anna in your home? Subscribe for more real-life horror stories, if you dare.